Hey guys, it's Wow, and in today's video, I'm going to be doing a kind of like reaction or like kind of like go over of Otstava's recent video that he's put out, which is tips and advice for every killer in Dead by Daylight. Mostly this whole entire video is going to be focusing on specifically the Death Slinger part of his video. Since I am someone who plays Death Slinger a lot, and I have like nearly 4,000 or 5,000 hours on Death Slinger, or like nearly 7,000 on Death Slinger, and I just wanted to like kind of explain some things that he was going over in the video in a bit more detail, but also explain other things that he probably, that he probably like hinted at as well. So this is probably just going to be more of like kind of like divulging more information over the advanced clicks that he was kind of like hinting towards, and also kind of like divulging more information on stuff that he doesn't talk about or doesn't hint towards. But yeah, hopefully this video can actually help out a few people, especially people who know the basics of Death Slinger to begin with, and actually want to learn more advanced tips and tricks about Death Slinger. And yeah, let's get on with the video.
Next up is the Slinger. He's possibly the easiest range character to play as, and he shares some common things with normal, average.
The first thing that I do want to go over is his personal tier list of every add-on in the game. I know that this has been something that a lot of people on Twitter especially have been going over, but I do want to say this now. Otstava is not a killer main in the same way as you would call Scooty like a Wesker main or me a Death Slinger main. Otstava is basically on the same level as like Scotland, where you would normally say that Scotland and Ots are basically generalists, and what that means is that they put equal amounts of time and equal amounts of skill into every single killer in the game, meaning that they have like an equal amount of skill on every single killer, so they don't overly focus on one killer. So a lot of the stuff that he probably does get wrong with Death Slinger is mainly just because of that reason. I am not shitting on Otstava. I'm not, talking shit about him. I'm just saying that a lot of the stuff that he glosses over is mainly going to be because he is a generalist, and with the stuff that I'm going to be going over is because I am basically a Death Slinger one-click. So, starting off with that, a lot of the placements of a lot of the add-ons in his tier list I do disagree with. Honestly, I would say that Tin Oil Can, Spit Polish, even like Barbed Wire. Honestly, I would say a lot of the add-ons that he's put in like the middle tiers. So like you got Spit Polish, Tin Oil, Barbed Wire, Ammo Belt. You got those in like A and B. I would actually say those add-ons are definitely like S tier, and then I would say like Eerie Coin is basically like A or B, to be honest, because I feel like especially with like going against like better survivors, you are going to get less and less use out of like Eerie Coin. Especially if survivors are playing smart. If they know that you have Eerie Coin, they're basically just going to be running closer to you, so therefore Eerie Coin is basically a null variable, and therefore you have to take 2 hits. But when you play with like Cigar, it doesn't matter what the survivors do. As long as you have an item between you and the survivor, you actually have like an unlimited usage of that add-on. But then again, he is a generalist, so I would say the rest of the add-ons that he's actually put around, honestly, very, very well done by Otsia, especially for someone who doesn't main Death Slinger. Like, honestly.
Easiest range character to play as, and he shares some common things with normal average killers, so it's really easy to transition into this killer. He's a good character to play after you have a bit of experience. He doesn't rely on his range attack as much as the other ones. With, for example, Hunters, if you don't use a range attack at all, you're gonna be in a really bad spot. With this killer, you can wait until the last minute and only take shots when you are nearly guaranteed to hit them. His perks are also fairly good to unlock. Thanks so much for that, Sabi, Owlbot. Gear Hit is a nice info perk that works well on Nurse, on Wraith, on any stealth or hit-and-run killer. Then Switch is a really nasty slowdown perk that stalls gens, and it combos well with other perks like Pain Res. And Retribution is a trap hex perk that goes well on hex builds. It's okay to have, not too bad.
A lot of the stuff that he brings up here is very true. A lot of Death Slinger's perks are extremely good on a lot of other killers. Gearhead, the first killer that comes to mind is probably Huntress or probably Trickster. Those killers definitely do benefit from having Gearhead, especially because of the near unlimited or reading ability that you have. Dead Man Switch is just a no-brainer, especially if you pair it with like Pain Resonance, because it makes cleanse go so slow. Retribution can be good when you pair it with like Undying, Haunted Grounds, Devour Hope. Like, it's a very good protection perk. A lot of the stuff that he says about Deathslinger's ability to, be easy to play, I do agree with that. Deathslinger's extremely easy to pick up and play, but when it comes to mastering Deathslinger, when it comes to the actual like advanced stuff, with Deathslinger, that's the hard stuff. Like getting into Deathslinger, shooting people and reeling around like very short loops, that's very easy to do. But it's when you're actually reeling around these harder loops, like Jungle Gyms or like certain LT rules and stuff like that. Like actually thinking in 3D space, that's where the hard stuff for Deathslinger comes in. But yeah, when you're picking up Deathslinger and just playing him for the first time, he is extremely easy to pick up and play, especially if you played Huntress. Especially if you played Huntress, Plague, and all the other range killers in the game. He is definitely one of the easier ones. But when it comes to the excessive skill, like the advanced skills, those are a bit more difficult.
As you'll notice, he has normal average stature compared to the other tall killers. Normal terror radius. He's a bit slower than normal, but because he can shoot in front of him, if a survivor is barely beating you to something, you don't feel the lack of speed too much. He's very, very playable.
One thing that he brings up there is the ability for Deathslinger to stop pallet drops and stop window vaults, which is extremely true. When shooting a survivor, dependent on where they are within the action, if they are already doing the run-up animation for like a window, or they're already on the other side of a pallet and they're touching the pallet, if you shoot them, it doesn't stop it. But if you shoot them before that, if you get used to the timing, if you get used to when you're supposed to shoot survivors, it becomes extremely easy to actually counter those. So very, very good that you actually pointed that out as well, because that isn't something that a lot of people point out. Even like experienced Deathslinger mains don't point that out drawing their guides.
The gimmick with this killer is that his power shoots a survivor with a harpoon, impales them, and then drags them towards you. At this point, two things can happen. Either you break the chain because there's too many obstacles and you don't get to hit, and that will always injure and apply deep wound, which is very important, similar to Legion. It makes the healing take a bit longer, and if you leave the survivor, they can't heal right away. Or you can literally get them close enough to you to hit them with a basic attack, and that will also apply deep wound. Because he technically hits everyone with a basic attack, unless you break the chain, perks that insta-down are good, perks that apply effects are good, so we're going to be running some of those. As for add-ons, there are a few to stay away from. The reeling speed add-ons are not good. The movement speed add-ons while you hold your aim are not good. You only do that briefly. The add-ons to reduce your terror radius are gimmicky. Don't bother. Reload add-ons are always good. I'll bring a brown one this time. Missed shot add-ons, believe it or not, are also pretty good when you're still a beginner and you should be experimenting and shooting things even if you're not 100% sure. And add-ons that have effects that look strong are also pretty good. You can't go wrong with any of these. We have miss and that. And we're going to run a very simple...
He actually goes over like a lot of the add-ons here, which is actually really good to do. Deathslinger doesn't have a lot of variety with his add-ons. He has very basic effects, very basic things that change his power in a very basic and very like a very surface level way. But he does actually bring up that the wheeling speed add-ons are completely useless. And if you guys don't know, I actually did do some testing, but Snake Oil, the brown add-on for Deathslinger, the brown wheeling speed add-on, that increases your wheeling speed by 9%. It's actually better than Bayshaw's Gold Tooth, which increases your wheeling speed by, I think, 10%? I don't know the exact numbers. When I'm editing this, I'll put it on screen. But yeah, like, those add-ons are completely useless. If anything, they give the survivor more control over the chain. And then he also goes over the movement speed add-ons while ADSing, because those basically do nothing, especially if you're a good Deathslinger. Even if you're just a beginner Deathslinger, he just teaches you the wrong muscle memory and teaches you the wrong gameplay for Deathslinger, which is... It teaches you that holding your gun and aiming at a survivor is more impactful than actually shooting them, which isn't the way that you want to be playing Deathslinger. Which Otz actually does say here. He actually does say, shooting a survivor over and over again, or just like going for shots that you know, even if you know that the shot won't hit, it's good to go for them, because you actually never really know what shots actually hit and what shots don't. So him running ammo belt and spit polish here, which is a missed shot cooldown and reload, is actually really good here. He's like setting a very good precedent for newer Death Slinger players, which I actually like for well.
And he doesn't need to reload in lockers. In fact, I could shoot right now and just reload on the spot. It's just a little, you know, Call of Duty-like animation. You just reload your gun. That's cool.
That's actually something that's really good to bring up, especially for like newer players. With Death Slinger, he is an extremely unique killer in the way that every other projectile killer has a pre-deficit to using their power or using the strong version of their power. Plague has Survivor's Cleansing, so you can get Corrupt Purge. Huntress needs to go up to a locker and then reload and then be able to use our power. Trickster has to do the same thing, and so on and so forth. But Death Slinger is very unique in that case, where he doesn't need to do anything to be able to use his power other than reload just by himself. And the reload animation doesn't take that long, either. So, very good thing for him to bring up here.
Now, here, I am okay with the chain break, and notice that if the chain...
It's true that it's okay for the chain to break here, but you can also reel around it. You have to remember, base kit, your chain break is actually the same speed as you get in the basic attack cooldown. But the downside to this is Death Slinger looking at the ground. When you get a basic attack, you're able to freely move your camera, but when you get stunned, you aren't.
Chain runs into an obstacle, it breaks really fast. If there's nothing between you and the survivor, then it breaks.
Something that he does hint towards here, which I'm just going to say outright, I don't know if he says it later on in the video, is the fact that reeling does not use up your chain's health, or like the amount of, you know, the amount of usage that your chain takes up. The only two effects that actually use up your chain are collision and survivor struggling. Everything else is just visual or just there to get the survivor closer to you. It does not use up your chain.
Much slower. But now if I do the same, it's not gonna work, guys. Look, I'm gonna do it just to show you. Actually, I won't.
Very nice reel.
If I break the chain, the first time it's fine, because it damages and puts deep one, but the second time, it just does the same thing. It doesn't down to break the chain. So for the second hit, you will need to hit normally. Hitting normally has some advantages. It is about the same speed, but it applies perks like Insta Down and Sloppy Butcher, which we have. So
that's actually true. For the first hit, if you break your chain or if you hit the survivor, it doesn't really matter when it comes to the health state, since both inflict the injured status effect and also deep wound. But downing a survivor will not happen by breaking your chain. It will only happen if you hit them with your basic attack.
The prime moment for you to shoot a survivor is when they are locked in an animation. You remember when that Jake was dropping a pallet? During that brief second, I can do whip.
One thing that he doesn't say here either is during the pallet drop animation, the pallet does not have collision with projectiles. So you can actually shoot through the pallet while it's getting dropped, and the spear will actually go through and hit the survivor. So that's something to keep in mind as well for some easy shots.
It only takes 0.4 seconds. During that brief moment, I could do a shot and he couldn't really dodge it. So anytime they're in a tight spot, vaulting a window, vaulting a pallet, you can get them.
You can dodge pallet shots and window shots if you hold crouch during the animation, because your survivor will instantly start crouching the moment that the animation is actually set to finish. And the hitbox actually changes before the animation, like the actual playable, viewable animation ends. I think you can crouch like 0.25 seconds earlier. Right? I'll show you.
Alright, I'm gonna do a basic attack on this.
Right here, that curved part of that rock here, I'll probably show it more like when while I'm editing this, I'll zoom in. But right here, you can shoot over this curved part of the rock, and as long as it doesn't go up to halfway up the slope of this rock, you can actually hit the survivor because of the extended pillar hitbox that they have.
She vaults. She aim. I'll do a basic attack. And now look, I can immediately shoot as long as she... Okay, we have a problem here, chat. I'm not gonna make that, sadly. That's okay.
He could have made that if he pulled backwards and then started moving forwards, because pulling backwards pulls them into something that I like to call the window lips. And basically, there's 2 points of collision around every window in the game, excluding some. There's some on Macmillan that don't have this. where basically the survivors cannot move past that window, and basically what that is that collision is there to force the survivors, like, running up animation for the running vault, to not sway from side to side. So you can actually use that for Death Slinger, because while reeling, it counts as them running up for that vault. So you can use that collision there to stop them from moving away from that window. If he pulled back there, he could have actually got that down.
When you shoot a survivor, there's like a first few instance. Oh.
So one thing that goes into this is basically talking about how there's like a grace period between shooting the survivor and the crane actually being used. I call this grace period. I don't know if any other Death Slinger main actually calls it anything. But basically, this grace period lasts, I think, 0.15 seconds. Meaning that you can actually move during this grace period while Death Slinger's grabbing onto the crank. And by using this, you can actually gain a lot of distance. I think you can gain like a meter or two on the survivor, while your crane's basically not even getting used. So you just get free distance, pretty much. Which is very good that he actually covers this, because that is actually a very advanced tip.
I didn't mention this, I think it's a bit obvious, but this killer can hit through very tiny gaps. Can I show you?
Hopefully you can show this off, actually. It's actually a really good shot.
That is a gap.
He cried.
That could have somehow been a hit. No joke.
You can get the hit here. It's extremely difficult, though, because of collision.
Yeah,
the thing is here,
the
thing there is that Kate can actually hear like the ringing sound effect that happens while Death Slinger's aiming at them, because he's aiming at their waist. Waiting at the pallet. You can shoot over this and it'll be a free hit. He should have shot Drake when he was dropping the pallet, because that will be a really easy reel as well, because it's a very short loop. Anytime you see a short loop, always shoot the survivor and see if you can reel around it.
And not actually shoot. I'm gonna try to drag him, but unfortunately... Oh! Unlucky, man.
One thing that you could have done there is actually move towards Drake, and by putting Drake right in front of him, no matter who was body blocking, he could have actually looked to the left or the right, and by making it so there's no survivor on his screen, even if Drake isn't on his screen, he would still hit Drake, because of reeling auto-aim.
Okay, he spawned 3 girls. That's damn, dude. That's some strong Jake energy. Fair enough. He's dead on hook, so they want to protect him. But he's dead on hook, so I want to kill him. Guess what? How are we gonna do this, Chad? I'll hit pallet, no problem. And they can't do this anymore. I can also break that pallet. There's no.
He's actually being very smart here by injuring everyone who's going to take a hit for him.
Oh damn.
Close.
Yeah, this is bad. We might throw the game for chasing this guy. There you go. So,
nice shot.
Should you always reel back a survivor like I'm doing right now? Not necessarily. Reeling back a survivor or standing still or walking towards them actually results in the exact same time to hit them as each other. But, obviously, let's think about this guy, right? I shot him right here. He could have wedged himself in this corner and it would have been really difficult for me to grab him. So in that situation, I did want to pull him towards me, towards an area that was more in the open so that it was a bit harder. Does that make...
What a fucking excellent explanation of how reeling works. Holy shit. Meanwhile, me, Hydro, and fucking OC were here just scratching our heads on like how to actually explain reeling. And meanwhile, Ots just fucking comes out of it like, bro, that is actually such a good explanation of it. But yeah, for anyone who doesn't understand, reeling works in this way, where basically standing still and moving forward results in the same kind of crane control, as we like to call it as like Death Slinger, Death Slinger mains. Crane control is basically the ability to control the crane on either side. Death Slinger, when moving backwards, has 80 to 70% crane control. So he has most of the control over the crane when compared to the survivor, who will have like 20 to 30% control over the crane. Meanwhile, if you move forward or stand still, it will result in the same crane control for the survivor, meaning that the survivor will then have 70 to 80% control over the crane, meaning that Death Slinger will be left with 20 to 30%. There's some situations where you do want to move forward, but some situations where you do want to move backwards. One of the best situations to move forwards is when someone's trying to take a hit, since you actually move towards the survivor faster than you do while moving backwards, because there's actually... there's less distance between the end of your gun to the survivor, meaning that you can, and also you have like a full lunge as well, so there's actually less distance between you and the survivor if you move forward towards them. But if you're moving backwards, then there's a lot more distance to make up. Like, it feels like there's more distance to make up. And also, with plane control and everything, if they're wedged in a window, or if they're wedged like between two objects, then it's better to move forward than it is to move backwards, and vice versa. If they're not wedged in an object, then it's better to move backwards than it is to move forwards. So always keep in mind your surroundings and everything that you're wheeling through, and also who's around you while you're wheeling, because that is the most important thing to keep in mind while wheeling, because it will determine how you wheel.
Yeah, you drag them like this. Even if you're a bit far, you can do a lunge like that. Not against
Yeah,
the
very
skull,
nice.
But yeah, you basically just do a normal attack. Even if you're a bit far, you can still do it.
Survivors have a lingering hitbox around a window after being grilled of 0.15 or 0.25 seconds. So, what you can do with that information is basically lunge towards the window at the last second before they start running away, especially if they're getting reeled like sideways in a way. Because most survivors are expecting to move backwards away from the window, but if they're moving sideways, then they'll actually like have a second to kind of like get to grips with what's around them and everything like that. So you can actually get that hit easier if you wheel them sideways. And him saying that you can lunge towards the window and get the hit, that's actually very nice, because that's actually something to keep in mind with Death Slinger all the time, is to always lunge for your hits, because you never know if a lunge is actually going to hit or not.
You can shoot survivors out of... Hello. You can shoot survivors out of platforms. And sometimes it can also be a good idea to drag them towards you if you want them to be in a particular spot that's convenient to trigger a perk or to get close to the gens or whatever. I'm gonna fake.
Very nice that he talks about movement manipulation and also misplacement of survivors. That isn't something that a lot of people actually keep in mind. I don't keep that in mind like most of the time, but at the same time, it is a very good skill to keep in mind, because you can actually lunge around a survivor or lunge a survivor into a corner without hitting them in order to force them into a bad area where they're basically like instantly dead.
Going this way and then... Another example, you wait until they're there. Much like hunters, I hit them with my basic attack, even though I could have also broken the chain. I don't reload yet. Why don't I reload? I don't want to give her distance. I wait, and now that I'm sure that I can put myself between her and the hook, and I'm pretty sure that she's kind of screwed, now I can reload. Basement's here, so she dropped.
Very smart explanation on reload mechanics and reload, like when to keep in mind when to reload and so on and so forth. That isn't something that a lot of people think about, and that's not something that's covered in a lot of guides. This is actually extremely good information for newer Death Slinger players, and even advanced Death Slinger players. Honestly, I feel like he hit the nail on the head with a lot of the information that he gave.
When should I shoot and when should I fake it? Honestly, look at the survivor. Are they looking behind them? Some survivors, they'll try to do they'll try to do mind games without even seeing you. But most survivors will be looking back, and you'll see in their character that they're leaning back and looking behind their shoulder, and you can tell they're gonna try to dodge. If you think that it's not a big deal, like, go for the shot, man.
That's actually very smart as well. One of the biggest things to keep in mind when playing Death Slinger is to look at the survivor's model. If the survivor is looking behind them, if the survivor is looking in front of them, or like any of that, that actually really does determine how you're actually going to be playing against that survivor, or how you're going to be aiming. The reason why I flick a lot is because a lot of survivors look behind them, especially at my skill level, and survivors are watching Death Slinger more than they're actually watching the gun. So by flicking, I'm basically forcing them to look at the spear instead of me, meaning that they're not focusing on where I'm aiming, they're focusing on when the spear is going to go, and therefore it's kind of like a 50-50 at that point. And forcing people into a 50-50 is probably one of the best things to do as Death Slinger.
Aiming at feet? Okay, this is important for every killer that has a range attack. But basically, when survivors move forward, and especially when they're injured and they like hunch over, their actual hitbox is actually sitting a little bit behind them. That is true.
Very true.
So yeah, aiming at their legs and imagining a straight little capsule.
Another thing to keep in mind as well is that survivors will crouch a lot against Death Slinger. So aiming at the lower part of their body, especially as Death Slinger, is probably one of the best things to do, because you're countering the ability of them like crouching and dodging your shot. So, and also, like Ott said, the hitbox of the survivors does lag behind the survivor a lot. With Death Slinger, though, he is very unique with his hitbox because he has two types of hitboxes. He has a pill hitbox, and then he also has a model-based hitbox. So therefore, what that means is that you can shoot a survivor's arm, and that would actually hit them, because that's the model-based hitbox. And then, if you actually hit, like, the top of the survivor's head, it will also hit as well, because of the pill-shaped hitbox that they also share. So, there's a lot of intricacies with Death Slinger. But one thing that you want to keep in mind is aim at the lower part of the body, especially as Death Slinger, because it will be it will help you extremely, and it would it'll benefit you more since you're going to hit more of your shots, basically. Okay, so overall, what do I think about this video and what you showed off? Honestly, I was not expecting a lot of advanced tricks, especially with the advanced tricks that he actually showed off, to actually get showed off with Death Slinger. Overall, I was expecting this to be a very basic go-over of Death Slinger's abilities, and basically just like, oh yeah, you can break your chain, you can shoot through gaps and stuff like that. But nah, he actually explained a lot of advanced mechanics, especially grace period, especially, you know, when to reload and stuff like that. Like, honestly, overall, I am very happy with what Death Slinger, with what Otz has actually explained about Death Slinger, especially reeling. Like, I never ever saw, or even, like, heard of anyone actually explain reeling nearly as good as Otz did in this video. So, honestly, like, overall, even as someone who has, like, multiple thousands of hours in Death Slinger, I still learnt stuff off this. Honestly. So, honestly, if you guys want to see the video in its entirety without me talking over it, or without, you know, me being annoying and pausing the video every 5 seconds, honestly, please do go check it out. It'll be in the description, and it'll be, probably at the end of the video if I can, but it'll definitely be in the description. But yeah, hopefully you guys have learned a thing or two, and hopefully, you know, hopefully I have explained, like, a lot of stuff that Otz has failed to explain as well. But yeah, I see you losers in the next one. Bye.